All right, for the students in Fairfax City, we're very grateful that Ragnar O accepted our invitation to our show. Ragnar, welcome to my humble podcast.
Thank you, Claudio. Pleasure to be here.
No problem. Thank you. Let's go back to the beginning of your life, Ragnar. How did you start in music? You grew up in a musical family? Anything
No,
like that?
no, no. I'm the son of two scientists, nature
Yeah.
scientists, career scientists, and but they always had good taste in music. And the funny thing is, my two fellow members in Árstíðir, they also come from sort of not really much musical backgrounds, but we all met at the university. The music was in us, and then we had a similar frequency. We all loved music that had harmonized male singing. So that's kind of that's what brought us together. This kind of interest in harmonized singing.
Sure. And where in high school, when you were, I don't know, 14 to 18, were you in any bands at all?
Yeah. Me personally, I started messing with rock and roll bands at the age of 15, and tried many different styles. And I guess everything I do today is very eclectic. And because I've tried so many different styles, and still, even today, I'm playing in many different styles. So outside of Árstíðir, I also have other projects.
Right.
And that is the most, I think that's the most defining factor actually of all Icelandic musicians, and the secret to unlock the Icelandic sound, if you will. It's always a fusion of many things, because we are such a small nation here, and there are not enough musicians to populate all the different genres. So we naturally kind of end up playing in all the genres. And then when we sit down to write our own original music, we kind of draw on all those colors. And whatever we come up with, it will become a mixture of many different styles.
Good. Very well. Good way to explain that. So eventually you finished high school, and you mentioned before that you came from a family of scientists. Any pressure for your family about, hey, forget about music, go to medical school, become a research somewhere, or you were on your own to try it out? And
yeah, I guess pressure is a negative word, but in their experience, the way to an interesting life was through the university, because there you could, if you work hard in university, then a lot of these amazing doors open to you. My parents, they've been doing science research all over the world, on North Pole, South Pole. They've seen places that most people will never get to experience, and that's all because they went through this academia, and it's a key to learning about the world, and then seeing the world, and understanding the world. So of course, in their experience, that was the thing that gave their life value, and gave them the life quality that they wanted. So it was natural for them to kind of suggest to me that this is a pretty cool way to go. So I wouldn't call it pressure. It was more of like they was kind of encouraging me to go that direction, which is why I entered the university. And my interest has always been in the arts, my personal interest. I was always obsessed about listening to music, playing music when I became a teenager. And then I also wanted to become a writer. And so I entered in the university in studying literature. And that gave I got a thumbs up from my parents, but at least the boy is in academia, he'll be fine. But yeah, after 5 years of literature studies, I've been a full-time musician ever since. But at least I got my diploma, so
right. So they can leave you alone.
I don't regret it. Yeah, exactly. I got my parents happy, and now they're just sort of very supportive of my musical career. And I think also the literature studies gave me a very profound understanding of lyrics and poetry. So that's something I, of course, draw on whenever I'm composing lyrics.
Yeah. I got you. I didn't tell you before, but I was born in South America. I was born in Chile. So probably your parents went there to the Antarctica or the South Pole. Quite sure, a lot of people do research in the area there. And so you mentioned before, when you were in high school, you were listening to a lot of bands, a lot of music. Do you remember what stuff you were listening at the time when you were, I don't know, 16, 17, 18 years old?
Yeah, like I guess me personally, I loved rock and roll, so
Yeah.
Guns N' Roses has always been an Aerosmith and stuff like that for me. But yeah, like I also, because I had scientist parents, they were always moving around because of research projects and work. So I actually grew up for the longest part in different parts of Sweden, and then I lived in America for a short time in Colorado. My parents were working at the Colorado University, and we also lived on Svalbard, which is the Spitsbergen Islands, which is the northernmost point of civilization, a group of Arctic islands north of Norway that are governed by Norway. And there's a small university there, so that's where the family lived for a while as well. And what that did was, of course, throughout my childhood and my teenage years, I also had the unique opportunity to kind of listen to contemporary rock pop from different countries. So Swedish rock and pop, Norwegian rock and pop, and in when I was living in Colorado, there was a huge jazz scene, so I got interested in jazz and other styles that were new to me. So I guess I was very fortunate to be exposed to a very wide cultural as well as musical palette. And I think as an artist, whatever you create is always drawing on everything you experienced. And the more you experience that, that kind of simmers down to whatever you create. And I think for any artist, it's be having these unique experiences. It is definitely a very helpful and then thing when you're creating art.
Good for you, man. Good for you.
Thanks.
Like I mentioned before that I've been your country a couple of times. Man, Iceland is another world altogether. It's a beautiful place. Of course, everybody knows the nature and the volcanoes and all the stuff, the waterfall, but it's another world. That's it's like going to Australia. Nothing like that. You need to be there, right?
Yeah, well, that's the cool thing about our world. Like every place has its unique imprint,
Sure.
and and with Iceland, I think also what I'm discovering more and more, especially we in the band Árstíðir, we're discovering more and more is like how unique our sonic imprint is. Like there is something called the Icelandic sound, and I alluded to one thing earlier that because we play in many different genres, we tend to create these unique mixtures. But there's also like this kind of profound connection to the kind of traditional music of Iceland. So we are a young nation and an old nation. Our predecessors have been here for 1,000 years, and we have kind of still, because we were very isolated. We were far away from Europe and in a small rock in the Atlantic Ocean. There was cultural isolation for almost 1,000 years where we didn't get much outside influence, and I always like to talk about the fact that music theory didn't arrive into Iceland until many hundred years after it was invented in Europe. So a lot of our traditional music is performed without any sense of theory, any knowledge of theory, or no rules, and it's also mostly performed orally by vocals.
I see.
Because we didn't have access to instruments, or we didn't have trees that we could use to build them. So, and that's something that increasingly our band Árstíðir is kind of drawing upon in our on our current releases.
I got it. And all this tradition and oral tradition with no instrument and singing a cappella, because we'll talk about the latest album, it's part of the curriculum in your country. I mean, little kids that are 14, they have the option to, I don't know, learn music or learn arts or literature are part of the curriculum for the young kids too.
Yeah. I think schools can always do better, but I think all things given, the access to music education in Iceland is pretty good, and it's a big part of the culture. Like when you're a kid, you have the option to choose to if you want to learn an instrument or if you do sports or but there are options, and also it's like also in the culture it's kind of without reflecting upon it, music is a big part of society here. Icelanders sing a lot. It's estimated that a huge part of the population joins a choir at some point in their life, and I guess the first curriculum is the curriculum of parenting, where we parents, they will sing the same lullabies and nursery rhymes to their kids as their parents sang to them, and those are often pagan, old melodies that are composed without music theory, and has this reverberation of like really, really old traditions. So that's kind of spoon fed us as when we were kids.
That's beautiful, man. And of course, just like the Icelandic culture, Árstíðir music sits somewhere between, history, like you say, history and nature, right?
Yeah, as I say, history and modernity, and
yeah.
because we kind of draw on our old traditions, but we also mix it with all the tools of contemporary music. So it's a fusion thing, acoustic and electronic.
How difficult is somewhere like you to make a living as a musician in your own country or anywhere else? Is how you manage, because a lot of people have second jobs and they have a family,
right,
and
right.
put on the table.
Our predicament is that we're so few here in Iceland that we don't have a big audience to play to, and if it's further complicated by the fact that in Iceland everyone is an artist. Everyone is either writing a poem, in a choir, composing music, or working on their next book. So yeah, we're a nation of musicians, and we can't all be playing for each other. So there's a lot of competition, I guess, for the attention here in Iceland, because there's just so much music in such a small place. But Árstíðir, we've been fortunate from the start of our band to go out and tour every year. We did our first international tours with two in 2010. Went one tour of Scandinavia, and I did one tour of Russia, and then it has never stopped. Every year we've been touring once or twice or thrice a year, and we kind of found our audience outside of Iceland, which it was great. And to this date we toured every nook and cranny of Europe. We did a tour of the States in 2015, played some 22 states.
Wow.
We've been all over Siberia a few times, and we've been to Svalbard, my old stomping ground on the close to the North Pole. And yeah, we've traveled, played a lot, which is, I guess, such a privilege. And really, the band has become a touring band.
That's great. Good for you guys, man. Of course, I never see you live, but hopefully one day I will see you playing live one day. But I've been following your music for a long time now. The band formed in 2008, right? As a trio at the time, right? Between Daniel, Gunnar, and Ragnar, yourself, right? And recorded the first album. Feel free to elaborate the motivation of putting the band together and getting a couple of your friends to join the band and so on and so forth.
Right.
Yeah. What was the motivation of putting that together?
Well, like I said, we met in university. I was studying literature.
Yeah.
Gunnar was studying law, and Daniel was studying engineering. But we all loved music, and we had this common affinity for bands that did harmonized singing. So like Simon Garfunkel, the Beatles, but also a lot of Icelandic bands that we looked up to, Magnús Jóhann, Trúbrot. So we would meet often at Daniel's place. Daniel had a huge collection of old vinyls, and he was also brewing wine at the time. He's an engineer, after all. He's very resourceful when it comes to figuring out how stuff is made. And so we would sit at his place and drink his homebrewed wine and listen to the vinyls he had. And then after doing that for some time, we kind of naturally just picked up guitars and started to write our own songs, drawing on that. So the first album is very kind of, folk singer-songwriter Americana inspired. a lot of Neil Young influences. But again, it's in hindsight, it's funny to reflect that we kind of, without knowing it, we also brought kind of what our inheritance to the mix. It's something that we cannot escape our Icelandic programming. So there's these kind of Icelandic harmonies kind of floating over everything. It's a bit melancholic, I would say.
Yeah, I got you. Understand. In 2010, the band became like a sextet, right? You went for the three guys, and then Carl and John and Jonas came together, right? And as well, why expand it? I mean, it was for three. Were you accomplished into what you wanted to do, or perhaps you were not there and you try, well, let's bring a couple of people to see if we can take it to a next level, if you will.
Yeah, I think it's the instrumentation wise, we were just three guitar players and three singers, and then we kind of as we were making the second album, we were kind of experimenting with how we can grow the musical palette. And so Jon played the piano, and he was invited over for a rehearsal, and that really clicked. And then Carl and Hallgrímur, violin and cello, they came over rehearsal, and it just really clicked. And then we kind of discovered that our music really needed strings and a piano to kind of really, both realize our musical ambitions, but also we kind of found our palette, which is this interplay between vocal harmonies, string arrangements, and acoustic instruments. So plucked acoustic guitars and piano. And then these three members who had joined later, they then left the band, so we're back to the original three, and that's been the band ever since. The three founding members. But we always tour and play with strings. So whenever we go on tour, when we make an album in the studio, we will hire session musicians who come and play strings. And then I stopped playing the guitar, and I'm now the piano player of the band. So and then I'm going to play the guitar. Then we've been using the same string players now for 10 years. Two French giants in the French music scene, Guillaume Lagrivière and Jean-Samuel B. And so they become like family members almost. And whenever we tour or when we make an album, then we get together again and play music.
Okay, good for you guys, man. Good for you. The band, it's hard for me to pronounce. Árstíðir, I think in English means seasons, right? It's an Icelandic classically. It's an indie rock chamber pop band. It's hard to describe, but basically vocal harmonies. And as all of you are, at least for the videos I have seen, all of them are singers at their own right. So everybody, only you bring your instrument, but which is very rare in a band. Usually you have like a front lady or front guy, and everybody in the background, so the more. But in your case, everybody's up front, everybody's contributing, everybody's playing, everybody's singing, which is beautiful, man. Yeah,
it's a bit like the Beatles. You had three frontmen in the Beatles as well.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Good for you guys. Very, very great music. Feel free to have at the beginning, you start touring in 2010, I believe, during the summer. You have a couple of number one hit in your country as well. Feel free to elaborate on that. How you went for the first record, second record to have a couple of singles on radio, and then little by little you began known in Iceland, later on in the world, right?
Yeah, I was the zeitgeist. Basically, we were already playing this kind of our version of folk indie, and then the banks crashed in 2008, and as we all know, everyone in the world were affected somehow. And here in Iceland, it was particularly bad because all the banks crashed, and it was political and financial turmoil. A lot of people were didn't know what the future would bring, and that kind of in the wake of this crash, people in Iceland collectively turned to values that transcend these fluctuating economic things. So people turned to culture, to music, to traditions, stuff that you can rely on. And we just happened to be a band that was just releasing our first album when the banks crashed. So our album the timing was perfect for us because we were playing exactly the type of music that people were craving at the time. Just, honest acoustic, a little bit melancholic, nature influenced, and drawing on traditions and history. So that's exactly what people wanted to hear. And so we were picked up by the radio. Our first single became a hit, and then another song became a hit, first number one played hit the following year. So yeah, we kind of hit just the zeitgeist at the time, and then that kind of coincided with a growing interest in Europe, where music lovers all of Europe were kind of discovering Icelandic music. So Iceland was becoming, popular basically, and we also kind of hit that perfect timing that we started touring Europe, especially, and we very quickly found our audience in Germany, Netherlands, Austria, Switzerland, countries around there. So, and in 2012 we competed in a folk music competition, that the European folk music awards, called the Iceland Awards, in a place called Plauen, a very revered reward, and we competed and we won. So in the 2013 we were crowned the winners of the European Folk Music Awards, and on strength of that we were then invited to the big folk festivals. So we had a very quick rise at the first years, which is interesting because when we made our third album, we were kind of still in our experimental phase, and kind of seeing how far we could develop this musical palette. So we made an album that strayed away a little bit from the kind of folky sphere where we're at, and we were kind of experiment more with rock and electronic influences, and and every album we've been doing since then has been, again, very, very Icelandic in a way that we experiment a lot. Every time we make an album, it's the laboratory is open, so we just let the music decide where to take us, and we don't sort of sit down and decide what kind of album we're going to make. We're going to just make songs and then see where they lead us. Which is why you were saying before that we've had a lot of labels attached to us. We've been called folk, indie, pop, rock, world, traditional, neoclassical, minimalist. We had all the labels attached to us, and they're all true, but no one captures exactly what we are. So which is a headache for like modern algorithms or record companies. Like, they don't know what to call us. Should we file them under indie or folk or rock or progressive?
Right.
But the people who like Árstíðir, they love us for this exact reason, that the music doesn't sound like anything else. It just sounds like Árstíðir. So we are our own genre in a way, which is, I think, in my mind, that's the highest thing to achieve, to carve out a little sphere that's uniquely you. Which
absolutely
is,
that's the beauty of the thing, that's your own, which is a combination of a lot of different things. My understanding that the fans all over the world have helped crowdfund half of the 8 albums that you have already, right? So how somebody like myself or people all over the world can help out you guys in Facebook? They make an announcement. We need fans for the upcoming album for 2025, 2026, whatever.
Right.
And then people can donate money. And how does it work? Feel free to elaborate on the process.
Yeah. So like you said, we made now 9 albums, and 4 of them have been crowdfunded. So entirely the cost of making them and printing them was entirely paid by the people who support our crowdfund, and which goes to show how incredibly dedicated our fans are, which is, again, in this day and age, you can measure success in so many different ways, but I think for us it has always been the thing that really matters is, like, do people really listen to your music? And the people who like our music, they usually are our fans for life. They stay with us. We get to know a lot of them because we see them at concerts every year. So we've formed a very, very deep relationship with our listeners. We don't call them fans even. We don't like that word. We call them listeners or friends, because they're becoming they're a part of our lives, and we can always rely on them to when we need to crowdfund something, when we can't afford to record an album, and we have pretty high standards for our albums as well. So which means we will always record the albums to the highest quality, and I think I'm very proud of the fact that all our 9 albums have a very high sonic level to them. Like we worked with the best people that we could work with in Iceland, and but yeah, it costs money, but thanks to our listeners, it's been made possible. Then, which brings us to the newest album, which is a bit different, because then our 9th album, Vetrarsol, is the first album which we did not compose a song. So the first 8 were all our music. Now we recorded a full album made of only traditional Icelandic songs. So basically we sang, and we did not use any instruments. This time we only used our voices. So basically we're singing choir arrangements of old traditional songs, hymns, and choral pieces. And
feel free to show it. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, absolutely. And if you open up the sub, if you unfold there, it has I have seen it. Yeah, I don't have that album. I need to get it. I need to get it from your hands.
Well, yeah, we'll figure that out. And then because every song is composed by lyrics are composed by usually a very famous composer or wordsmith in Iceland, poet. So they're all named by my name, and then we have a little short description of the history of the song.
Got it. Yeah, beautiful. Yeah.
And again, I would say it's we have our listeners to thank for having the idea to make this album, because back in 2013, right around the time we were winning this folk music award, we were touring Germany, and we were playing in a venue in a place called Wuppertal, which was next to this train station. And after the show was finished, we were just having beers and talking to our listeners, when we discovered that the train station hall had this long, beautiful echo. And as singers, we love to play with echo, especially like old churches usually have a long, beautiful echo. So we like to sing in churches whenever we can. And here we were in the middle of the night, a little bit tipsy, in a train station in Germany, and just playing with the sound of our voices and the echo. And we sang a few traditional songs that we knew. And then this song called Hey Himnasmir.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's
It's originally a hymn composed in the year of 1208, so it's more than 800 years old. Composed by a Viking chieftain called Kolbeinn Tumason. We sang that one with an arrangement by Þorkell Sigurbjörnsson, which was composed for choir in the 70s. We sang that in the train station, and this is before everyone had smartphones, but our friend Linda, she had a real camera with a video function, so she kind of recorded it, and we put it online, and it became our first viral YouTube hit, where people all over the world were watching it. And a lot of our listeners who like Árstíðir, they discovered our music because they saw the YouTube video, and they have been asking us to make an album with record this song, not in a train station, but recorded properly. So that's what this album is about. We're kind of fulfilling that 10-year-old promise of recording the definitive version of this song Hey Himnasmir. And then we just kept on going, recorded 11 other songs in a similar vein, similar mood, and it's just songs that we grew up with ourselves. So it's picking the songs were very easy. It's songs that and it kind of goes to show also what Iceland has, this long tradition of singing. So there's so much music in Iceland that no one has heard outside of Iceland. And part of our hope with this album is to kind of allow you and people from all over the world to discover these hidden Icelandic gems like Hermnarsmiður was, before we sang it at the train station, no one really knew about it outside Scandinavia.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for pointing out. Yeah, I have seen the video, of course, a couple times, more than a couple times, several times, and it's a very simple video, and it's beautiful, man. I mean, these sounds with the like a 20 people, around some of you and the train station. Of course, the quality of the video is not that great, but it doesn't make a difference. Somebody captured that and it sounds unbelievable, man. And
Yeah,
like you say, the video went viral. Who are these people? Singing on a train station in Germany. It's a beautiful, man. The album is is unbelievable, man. It's very, very, very well done.
Thank you.
It's amazing that somebody can. All of you with no instrument were able to capture the stuff. Where was that recording? You have like you have your own recording studio, or you go into a particular facility where was that recorded? Or
well, for every album we use different studios, but one that we used a lot through the years is, especially for string recordings, is the studio that was built by Sigurós. It's built in an old swimming pool. It's called Sundlaugin. But for this album, we just needed a room with good acoustics, and because we didn't have any instruments, we only needed a good stereo pair of mics.
Yeah,
and 2 spot mics, and we just rented a small studio with treated acoustics called Studio Nashville, and then we did actually some of the songs we recorded even in Danny's home studio. And then Daniel, he mixed the whole thing. So it's the first album that we also mix by ourselves. The other albums have been mixed by engineers from the Icelandic music scene.
In terms of the record sales are compared to before and after that album, I'm quite sure that album opened a lot more door for you guys, and hopefully been able to record the investment that you did in the album and so on and so forth, and that allow you to tour and so on and so forth.
Exactly, and it's a good point, because this is this album, we decided not to release it for streaming, so you cannot find it on streaming services.
Right. Yeah.
Which is, that's a different discussion, and every musician is dealing with this, that streaming does not pay enough. Very little. And if you're making an ambitious album, then you have to have a ridiculous amount of monthly listeners to ever have a chance to recuperate the money, which is why we decided to record this ourselves. But also now, after having made 8 albums previous, we've learned so much about the process of engineering and recording and mixing. So we felt confident to do it ourselves. So that saved us some money. And then also, we didn't release it to streaming, but we were confident that our listeners would still want to hear it. And sure enough, we sold quite a lot of this album. So all our our devoted listeners, they have a copy, and it just also proved to ourselves that in the year 2025 you can release albums and make a profit out of it without relying on streaming. And that was a bit of a challenge, but we've proven to ourselves that it can be done. And this is something I think more musicians across the board have to start asking themselves, like with Spotify not paying fairly to the musicians, and Spotify also now making AI generated music themselves and then putting that on the playlist. They're slowly carving away the piece that goes to the musicians. The actual musicians is getting smaller and smaller by the year. So it's not a sustainable model. So something else is needed. And we, as any band, have to, deal with this new reality. And but thanks to our listeners, we are able to. So we're very grateful for that.
Yeah, that's beautiful that you put it together. And of course, I know the argument, Spotify, you need to have like 1 million hits to get $10 to get a cup of coffee or something. What a ripoff that is. It's good.
It's crazy. It's crazy. And I'm like, where does this end? Because if this goes on for some more years, then we'll have generations of musicians growing up in a environment where life in music cannot be profitable, because but
more and more bands are not putting the music on Spotify or another venue and like you do, release on your own or do a self-release
Yeah.
or crowdfunding, and they do well. Can record that investment the time
Exactly.
they took. So you don't need, like you say, it was proven that you don't need Spotify, right?
Yeah,
Or
right.
yeah, Bandcamp. On the other hand, I think it's fair to musician, because I think Bandcamp only take 10%, right? The 90%.
Absolutely. And we also have a Bandcamp,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
yeah, actually, so if you want to get this album digitally, the only place you can get it is on our Bandcamp. And
Bandcamp. Yeah,
Bandcamp is it's so cool, and
yeah,
and also in this changing environment of the music business, I think it's important that all the people who listen to music and everyone who's listening to this interview now,
yeah.
it's very important that they realize that with every year it's getting more and more important that you as a consumer are aware of, like, you support the bands you like whenever you can, and that means
Absolutely. Yeah.
if you discover a band on Spotify, then maybe if you listen to the album a lot, then maybe buy the album physically or buy it on Bandcamp, and buy tickets to the
gigs,
to the
right?
show
Yeah.
whenever in town, and or go to their merch store and buy a T-shirt. So if everyone does that, then we can still maintain a healthy music scene where musicians can continue to make great music, and listeners can continue to have get new great music.
Absolutely. No, I completely agree with you. Like I told you before, I'm very lucky. So where I live in close to Washington D.C. I see close to 60 gigs a year, and
Nice.
I buy a lot of music. So, and I support
Right.
via Patreon a lot of bands as well. So
Right.
that's the right way
Awesome.
to do it.
Yeah,
Many
Patreon
people
is
all over the world think that music should be free, and which is crazy, right? How when you go and see a doctor, it's not free. When you go to a university, it's not free. You need to buy a book, it's not free. You need to see a dentist, it's not free. Why people would think that music is free? Because they think it could be free.
And
So,
also, let's say you go see a doctor for free, then the doctor will not be doing a good job, right? And the same rationale goes for musicians. If you want musicians to play for free, then
the quality is
exactly. So because it is. You mentioned Patreon again, another great way to support musicians, and I have Patreon myself for my solo project. And I think again, it's one of those things that, both for me, it allows me to create music full time because I have my patrons paying me every month, and I do special things for them. But also for them, I think they get to know so much more behind the music, so they really get to kind of get to know the music and the musicians, so that for them the experience becomes much deeper, and they form connections with the musicians. So this is really, I think the future of music will be just that, like, both for the creators and the consumers, to kind of create communities. And again, as a creator, Patreon is giving me, sure, it gives me some dollars every month, but more than that, it gives me a sense of purpose. I can write a new song, and I can sit down on my laptop and then play it online to my patrons, and already I have an audience, a paying audience even, and then they can tell me if they like the song or not. Then I can they can help me curate the set list of my future albums, and there's so much kind of, and that's really what music is about. Music is not about it's not about commerce, it's about exchange. And the same thing with anyone who's been to a live concert knows that if the band is good, that's one thing, but if the audience is good, then you have a magical evening, because and I always say that the audience does half the work. Sure, the musicians apply the notes, but the audience supplies the energy, and when they do a good job together, it is a collaboration. If the audience is terrible or the band is terrible, then you don't have a nice concert.
Correct, absolutely right.
Yeah, and this goes in on every sort of every week, in every aspect of the music. It's all about the interaction, and especially now with AI breathing down the neck of the music business, then I think the communities, that's where the future lies. And
absolutely. How many records have you released under your own name? You have like 2 or 3?
I'm releasing my third solo album this Friday, actually.
All right.
Yeah, so it's Yeah, my full name is, like you said, Ragnar O, and that's my solo project name as well.
Yeah, and I will put the link for the Bandcamp and of course your name as well there.
Excellent, thank you.
No, bro. Happy to help you. Be good to me, man. A couple albums. I just want to mention another one. The one for 2015. I don't know how to pronounce, but it's HVEL. Sphere, I think in English, in excellent as well. And the track Roll. That's a masterpiece, man.
Yeah, it is.
I listened to that the last 3 weeks. Last 2 weeks when I was putting questions together for this. That's a very good album. Very, very good album.
Yeah, it's one of the favorite albums of our listeners. They a lot of them, they mentioned this one as their favorite.
Yeah, good for you, man. I hope you continue selling that, and of course now with the new record, if we can call it the amazing sound from amazing voices, better soul. Quite sure people all over the world are asking, "Hey, can we do a part two, a follow-up album?" About this, Is there a possibility of doing something like that? It's something that you guys are thinking about? Yeah,
we're working on it. Yeah, there will be a follow-up album, because there are actually when we were making this album, we had kind of prepared so many more songs that we didn't have time to finish, or so definitely there we are slowly preparing to rehearse and develop the material, our versions of the material that will be the follow-up album, probably next year, not this year, but in 2026 for sure.
Yeah, good for you, man. I'm looking forward to the album. You guys have received so many awards: Song of the Year, Acoustic Song of the Year, Music Video of the Year, and Fall Music Award. Of course, good for you guys, man.
Thank you.
Very happy for you guys. My understanding, you're going to be touring soon. I think you touring April the 4th, the 5th, the 6th, the 10th, the 12th, right?
Right. We're doing a tour around our home country, Iceland.
Yep.
Yeah, and then we're doing our annual holiday tour or Christmas tour. We're doing that every year now in Europe. So from the end of November up to Christmas, we tour the mainland of Europe again.
I got it. Any possibility for you guys coming here to the United States?
I hope. I mean,
with visa and everything, but
with all the social medias and YouTube, we have the statistics. We know exactly where in the world people are listening.
Yeah,
and close to half of all our listeners are based in the United States and Canada. But we haven't been back. We toured in 2015. Did like I said, 40 shows around the United States, and we did one in Toronto in Canada. And we've been wanting to go back. The reality, and I'm sure you know this already, it's very expensive for European bands to come and tour, which is a bit unfair, because American bands, they can tour Europe for free, but European bands, they have to pay so much to get the work visa. So and it's I'm mentioning this because I think about all the people where you're living and in the States and States who want to hear their favorite European bands or Asian bands or Australian bands, and they can't make it over there unless they're already super famous. So you're kind of missing the grassroots up. You're kind of missing that. You're not getting a chance to see it. So I think it's a loss for everyone that so we as things stand now, we cannot afford to tour the States. It's just a fact. We hope it will change, and whenever we have a possibility, and or what could change is maybe if a festival invites us over, and they paid for the work permit, then we could do a tour around that. So we need some kind of sponsor to bridge the economical gap of getting a work permit for the States.
It's very expensive. I've heard that from.
But know this: the minute we get the chance, we'll come over.
You need to let me know. We need to stay in touch. Let me know.
Absolutely.
And let me know if it's anything I can do to help out in terms of promotion and the new album and the tour. I'm here to help, and looking forward to meeting you guys one day. Maybe you come over for dinner. And when you are here close to Washington, we'd like to have you, man. And your music is great. You're doing a keep on job. So Keep on doing what you're doing, man.
Yeah, thank you. Oh, by the way, we're in Washington. We played 2 shows in Washington, 2015, and one was at the Smithsonian.
Oh, wow. Yeah. I know that. Of course. Yeah.
And
The
in
Museum
in the
Museum. Yeah.
Yeah,
They
that
have
was
it,
fun.
Yeah. They have a lot of great acoustic there. I'm quite sure.
Exactly. We played in the one of the center halls where the
Yeah.
big stuffed elephant is. So we played
That's
there.
right. I know exactly. And what
Yeah.
was the other? There were 2 there that you saw?
It was an auditorium connected to one of the high schools, and the reason why we played there because this choir had reached out to us and wanted to sing with us Hernas Miður. So that's the train station song, the old hymn. They had heard it. They wanted us to sing with them, so we booked a gig in this high school auditorium, and we performed this song Hernas Miður with the choir. And it was nice. The ambassador of Iceland in Washington, he came to the show and his wife, and it was it was a great experience.
That's great, man. It was glad to hear. It was very nice talking to you, Ragnar. Good luck to you, and let me know if anything else I can do to help you guys out. Okay, thanks again, man. Take it easy.
Thank you so much.
No problem. Thank you.
Bye bye.